Okay, so I am going to temporarily mute everyone, and then whenever people wish, they can unmute themselves. Okay, welcome everyone to today's PM Book Club meeting. We are going to be discussing and asking questions to Steve Tendon and Daniel Doron, who are authors of Tame Your Work FLow. So the agenda today is Q&A with Steve and Daniel. How we work together? Well, we are respectful of each other's views. The session is being recorded, so please turn off your camera if you don't wish to be recorded. Use chat for ideas and questions. We have been talking between the meetings, but please do send us feedback and suggestions on the book club. At the end, we will be talking briefly about the next 3 books that we are going to do. But with that, let's get started. And I will let Nick do the honors.
Okay, thank you very much, Himanshu. I'm not sure if you were cut off and on, or sometimes I couldn't hear you, but there we go. Let us move on and not be too clumsy. We've got Steve Tendon here with us, which is great, actually. We're always very impressed and surprised when authors come and agree to come and talk to us. And we are talking about TameFlow, or the book, more precisely, Tame Your Work FLow. And indeed, we have had some difficulties in distinguishing the method, I'll call it method for now, the method as opposed to the book. And they're so close to each other that when we are talking, we don't know if, are we talking about the book or are we talking about the TameFlow itself, which I think is nice because it is such a rich book and has so many ideas, and the theory of constraints, which has influenced so many people up to now and is always there in the background, is influencing everything. And it is your subtitle. Here is the one that I'm sure everybody flashes at you because you have made it even more famous than it was, The Goal by Eliyahu Goldratt, who introduced many of the ideas that you are now essentially explaining to us. So welcome to this meeting. We will be talking about the book, about yourself, about the writing itself, and I'm sure we'll have a lovely hour together.
Thank you so much, Nikos and Himanshu, and please allow me to start as I usually do. Hello, friends of Herbie, which has become like my trademark.
Hello.
Hello, Justin. And indeed, in which case I will steal one of your phrases, and Himanshu is the host, but I just took over for a moment. I will steal one of these of your own phrases, and I will ask you to tell me, who are you? I like that, the way that you ask that, and surprise everybody. So please, who are you?
Yes. Oh, now I am at a loss here. I got the question. So who am I? I am a former software engineer in the previous millennium. In the stone age of this field, I was actually writing code, and that experience had a huge influence on what I'm doing today with TameFlow. Because I was with the, at that time, very famous Borland International, the makers of Turbo Pascal and other products in the personal computing revolution era. That experience was foundational, and I might tell the story more in detail if you want. But just to answer, who am I? Fast forward after the work as software engineer, I got promoted to, let's say, positions of responsibility, which just means running after people. In those positions, I also started to get involved more and more in merger and acquisition operations of software target companies. So I was facing both the pre-acquisition conundrum of how do you assess and evaluate a software company and its assets, and then afterwards, when all the eggs had been broken into the omelette, how do you make all the bits and pieces work harmoniously together? And that brought me more and more towards the field of management consulting, and in particular organizational performance. It is in that quest of trying to figure out how to make an organization become better that I developed TameFlow, or Tame the Flow. And the origins go back to those first experiences in Goldratt. Anyway, in 2012, I decided to write down what I was working on. The first book with Wolfram Müller came out self-published, and 1 year after it was published by a real publisher, JROS Publishing, with the title Hyperproductive Knowledge Work Performance, which I see Daniel is trying to show in on the screen there. Thank you, Daniel. That book sort of set the stage for the active research on this field, because I was always very successful on the field. I was asked the question, how do you do this? I didn't know how to answer. So I spent a few years in between 2009 and 11 to get deep into this. And that's also when I got my, late in my life, but I got my master's degrees in Lean Agile Software Project Management with the University of Aberdeen. So there was also like an academic slant to all this research. The point of convergence became the theory of constraints. Many people believe that I am a TOC guy. I am not, but I have been fascinated by TOC. Why? Because in one of my foundational ideas, I have this notion of the unity of purpose. A high-performing organization will not be high-performing unless there is unity of purpose. And when I discovered the theory of constraints, it was like an enlightenment. I understood the constraint is that single point on which the entire organization can focus and thus develop the unity of purpose. At that time, I came across TOC through the works of David Anderson, who wrote the first book about software engineering and TOC. I think it was called Agile Software Project Management or something like that. David Anderson eventually developed the Kanban method, but in doing so, he kind of renounced to the, well, presence of Herbie and TOC. And that for me was really disturbing. The statement he made a few times was that the constraint cannot be found in knowledge work where there is so much uncertainty, the VUCA thing. But I disagreed. I thought it was not a matter of the constraint not being present, but simply a matter of not being able to detect where it was. So those years of research went a lot into thinking about how can we find the constraint in knowledge work. And I think that summarizes what happened thereafter. It was the development of this idea of how do you get constraints management thinking into knowledge work. Of course, starting with the critical chain project management that is part and parcel of the theory of constraints, but which did not match the high-paced world of agile and agile software development in particular. And that's like the summary of how I got here. And well, you might also know that in the last few years, my career was a bit sidetracked by the blockchain technologies. So between 2016 and 2019, I put TameFlow aside, or actually I was actively using TameFlow in my blockchain consultancies, but I was not pursuing the approach of TameFlow. Now, as things happen, I ran across Daniel, maybe he ran across me, and he started asking questions. The rest is history. Question after question, we accumulated so much material that eventually Daniel, it's his fault, Daniel, you're there, I know, Daniel suggested we should write a book about this. And yes, thank you, Daniel, because that was a great, great suggestion.
I said we should write a 50-page pamphlet, and you woke up one morning and had a 600 book on my lap.
Well, I tried to reply to all your questions.
Yes, but that was a surprise because we were struggling with getting 50-page, and then one morning he comes with 600-page. Anyway.
But we reduced it a lot because now it's like 300 or something, right?
Yes, something to that effect, yes.
It is beautiful to see how the book itself was created. And I get an impression from this and other conversations that Daniel is like a Rottweiler asking so many questions one after the other, doesn't let go, which then forced you to essentially produce 300-page answers to all this. I like this synergy that the two of you have developed with different skills, essentially, but coming into one.
That is a very gentle representation. I think when Daniel is around, the Rottweilers run away.
Influenced the book,
it's been a crazy dynamic. It's been a crazy dynamic, and I think it's a gentle representation because when Daniel is around, the Rottweilers run away.
But we followed the sun strategy because Steve being in Malta and me being in Montreal.
Fair enough.
The book was being written 24 hours a day for an entire year.
Yes. So what's happened in the reading you did?
Muted.
In this one.
Manchu.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm just muting myself because it's too much noise.
Manchu, can you hear me? I have a question.
I have a bad connection.
Can you hear me, Nick?
Yes, Franco, we can. Go ahead, please.
Yes. So my question that has been...
Himanshu, have we lost Himanshu? Franco, we may have lost Himanshu.
No, Nick, I think there is a lag. You're hearing a lag, I think.
So
go ahead, Franco.
I have one question for Steve. And has been already partly answered by his presentation, Who Am I? My question was, which is the scope of the industry that may benefit of this approach? And the answer has already been that basically has been created inside the IT industry. And this consideration is connected to a question or argument I was proposing to Nick, that is how the project management diversify in the application of various industries. Steve, I have been dealing throughout my professional life with the engineering and construction of chemical, petrochemical plants and large infrastructures, power train, power stations and trains. My company did the high-speed train from Milano to Bologna, for instance. And this is a type of project that requires certain skills. But of course, we must be always explore other possibilities. And I was wondering how the principle that you specifically wrote for the, I would say, from your experience in the IT industry, could be expanded to other environments.
Yes, well, thank you for the question, Franco. It's a really interesting one because it explores the overlap of traditional project management and this approach that originated from IT, but specifically software engineering. I want to be clear; it's the origins are in software engineering. And that's important for some aspects on the actual dynamic of how software is developed. Now, what connections can we make? The first thing that comes to mind is the quote. I don't remember the exact words, but it's of the guy who made Mosaic, who recently said, no, software is eating the world. Maybe not so recently, now it's probably some maybe even 10 years ago. But in this software is eating the world, we are having the convergence of conventional project management and software engineering management. We have examples in the car industry where any modern car is basically a computer or several computers on wheels, and there are hundreds, if not millions, of lines of code inside an advanced car. This trend is this overlap is happening in more and more places. For instance, in manufacturing, we have 3D printing, which is all software. Even in the construction of buildings, we have examples of large-scale 3D printing. So there is this trend that software is entering in all industries, and therefore even those industries that have like a traditional quote solid background, solid in the sense that they are in the physical world, not in the worlds of let's say of molecules, not in the world of bits and bytes. That convergence creates the necessity to find ways of working that can coexist. And because I am basing a lot of my work on the theory of constraints, when there are projects that have these components that you would recognize as traditional project management, the thing to do is to wrap the TameFlow elements with a critical chain project management governance layer. So in that way, we can distinguish the streams of the project, which are the physical ones. You do that, as you best know, from classical project management or critical chain project management in particular. And then where you have the soft parts, the software parts, you can employ the things that I have developed with TameFlow.
Yes, I acknowledge. I mean, my question is, I repeat, I've been working throughout my life in refineries, chemical plants, and I went from the pneumatic instrumentation with all the cables that were connecting the valves with a control room that was requiring a panel of 20 meters by 10 meters with all the instruments, to the electro-pneumatic instrumentation, to the electronic instrumentation, and to the modern control room that are 3 computers only with the video, of course. But it is one instrument that you use and buy. You do not enter in the software of this equipment. Basically, you want to control the flow of 3,000 pipes, and instead of the electro-pneumatic or the pneumatic, you order to a supplier who will be developing the software required. I mean, as an investment, since let's say that the average amount is 1 billion pounds for one chemical plant, the order of magnitude, then you assign to a company the duty to develop the software for solving this, the control of all the flows, but you do not enter in those. Our projects also in the infrastructure, including in the infrastructure of the train, from the mechanical signaling. Now everything is electronic with the big computer, but also in this case, in making the investment that are several billions, because of the billions is just for a small portion. You use, you order, you buy the technology that you use for that. So my question is how we can make advantage of your thinking applying to a mature environment.
Well, excellent point again. The element that you're highlighting, where you are outsourcing, so to say, or ordering, so it's vendor management, the development of a software component of whatever you are realizing, still has, on the vendor side, on the supplier side, still has the element of software engineering and software development. The idea of writing a requirements specification can work only if the domain is very well known, and where the mapping from inputs to outputs has been absolutely predetermined. Of course, even in such settings, there will be setbacks, there will be things that do not work. You will have to go back and iterate, and it's proper project management all along. But if on the other side, there is an element of novel software development, of developing software that has not been conceived of yet, then that's where the TameFlow approach can be beneficial. Even in the realm of established industries, we are seeing this. I mentioned cars before, and the automotive industry is an excellent example with Tesla. Tesla could have sourced many components from the big providers of automotive components. It's pretty much a Lego game of assembling those components, and yes, there is a lot of configuration, of figuring out what are the sensors, the actuators, the timings, and engineering stuff. But what did Tesla do? They started with a completely blank slate, and basically designed the car around the software rather than putting software inside the car. So I think that is maybe an extreme example, but since they are pioneers, I think they are also setting a precedent. Who will be the Teslas of the other conventional industries?
Thank you. Franco, is that okay? Yeah. One of the things, Steve, that's been talked about quite a lot in the book is hyper performance. And then you talk about the 4 flows that are there in the approach. And how is hyper performance different than the productivity and the efficiency talk that we do? So could you throw some light on that?
Yes, it's very different, because when you look at efficiency, you are facing an optimization problem. So you have metrics, you have measures, and you tweak things, and you see if those metrics improve. By all means, it's an excellent way for any company to subsequently raise the bar and arrive at ever increasing levels of productivity. But performance and hyper performance go beyond the technicality of the measurement of output. It has a lot to do also with the attitude of the people involved in the organization, not in the team, but in the entire organization. When you have the alignment of the minds, of the attitudes that all go in the same direction, and they are supported by ways of working, of organizing work that in and by themselves will give you a lot of productivity, well, that's where you can gain this level of hyper performance. The examples of Borland, I think, are quite revealing. In my career, I have come across many who claim that these ideas of hyper-performing teams are just a fantasy. And I say, no, it's not true. I lived through it. It was my experience. The key, let's say, influence of Borland on this field was with the Quattro Pro for Windows team, which was studied by Jim Coplin, and that also influenced Jeff Sutherland in the making of Scrum, where he derived the stand-up meeting from what was happening at Borland. He derived the Scrum Master and the product owner from what was happening at Borland. But what is not vastly known, for example, is that that team, who was developing something completely new, a new spreadsheet on the Windows platform, was doing so on the basis of the C++ compiler, which was being developed at the same time. So it's like building a foundation, building a building on a foundation that keeps on changing every other day because it is being developed at the same time. And you would not be able to pull this off unless there was a very strong, cohesive union of those people, because otherwise you would typically end up in a situation where one team would start blaming and complaining about the other teams changing the foundations from one moment to the next. Instead, that challenge created very tight feedback loops between the two teams. So whatever one encountered was fed back to the other and vice versa. And both products became incredible, exceptional products in a very, very short period of time. Speaking of that Quattro Pro for Windows, you might have read some testimonials by Jeff Sutherland himself, where he states that that team was on average 50 times more productive than the team at Microsoft that produced .NET some years later, and was considered as setting the bar. So the case of hyperproductivity is real. It can be measured in other ways, not through the productivity metrics, but through these things that are patterns. Basically, we look at how different individuals or clusters of individuals are connected to the others. What is the social network therein, and how does information flow within that network? Those organizations that can configure their social network in a way that the information like moves around quicker than others will have a huge advantage. They might be able to iterate through the solution space 10 times faster, and while the competitor has developed one solution, they might be in the 10th version or 10th iteration, might have disregarded, scrapped 9 previous versions and just improved and improved. So there are compounding effects in hyperproductivity that escape the mere measurement, in hyperperformance, that escape the mere measurement of productivity.
Thank you for that, and
Right.
Enrique also has made the point, earlier, which was quite good about the construction industry. Thank you very much. This idea of unity of purpose is very, very important, and I think it is a very strong thing. And from what I understand, you are creating a community, essentially, a community almost of believers to actually try and convince the world. And there is a resistance, and every time you're getting questions, you're actually getting questions that are methodological questions or framework questions, and you're consistently challenged on that. And yet you say that this is not a method, it's not a methodology, it is not a framework, but it is all this idea based on these patterns. And those then bring the unity of purpose, as I understand it. Can you tell us a bit about these patterns? Because that bit where you produce individual solutions for individual problems is where I think most of the world is getting confused, because we like solutions that will solve all the problems in one way of the simple best practice world. But Herbie is not in that world. Herbie is in a more complicated, complex world. And I think also in the chaotic world, but we'll get to that slowly. So can you tell us a bit about these patterns? Because I think that is the stumbling block of many people, because always I see people are asking you questions that they would ask of a methodology, but yours is not a methodology, right, if you understand what you are doing.
Right. So patterns are fundamental, and that question about the unity of purpose and community of trust, even today on LinkedIn, I was having some conversations about these elements. When they are announced, expounded, often the listener will perceive that these elements are like principles or values, like the principles and values of the manifesto, that they are given from a moral standing, and that they would cause people to unite and to move forward. This perception is wrong. It's exactly the opposite. Unity of purpose and community of trust, or any principle and value that the organization will acquire, are not causes. They are effects. You don't announce the unity of purpose. You do things, you cause unity of purpose to come into being. And how does that happen? Well, the pattern thinking is essential, because I must clarify that when I say pattern, I mean Alexandrian patterns, the pattern of Christopher Alexander, which are a very deep field in their own right. The most important element of patterns and pattern theory is that patterns, when you combine them in this network of patterns, the pattern language, will become generative. They will guide you towards new solutions that were not there before. And the unit of purpose is something that is generated through the application of a number of these patterns. So it is like the end state. It's not the starting point. You get to the unit of purpose if you apply these patterns. Now, patterns can be qualified in many ways. Christopher Alexander was an architect, so you will often hear people say that patterns add structure to your domain. Of course, if it's architecture and you add a brick to a wall, that is clearly a structure. But in knowledge work, where everything is invisible, it's harder to define what the structure is. But in the definition of a pattern, which can be simplified as finding a solution to a problem in a context, the context is very important. In that context and in the definition of a pattern, there is also this notion of what are the forces that come into play in that context. And the name itself, forces, means that there is opposition, that there is conflict. Inside organizations, we have conflicts everywhere. We have conflicts from top to bottom, in the management layer, between workers, between employees. It's amazing that companies get anything done, considering that there is so much conflict. But that's where we unite the thinking of the patterns, where we have these forces that allow the conflicts to emerge, with the other huge field of the theory of constraints, which are the logical thinking processes, and in particular the so-called evaporating cloud, where the underlying assumptions of these conflicts can be, as Goldratt said, be evaporated. So you resolve the conflict. And this all works if you have the focus on like reaching the goal. So that is how I unite the pattern theory and the theory of constraints. And patterns are so flexible that I claim that this way of thinking is applicable to any kind of human endeavor. And let's not forget that the theory of constraints, notwithstanding that it started off on the manufacturing floor, in more general terms, is about human goal-oriented systems. And where you have humans and conflicts, you have forces, and when you have forces and problems and solutions, you have patterns. So that's a bit how things are put together.
Indeed. If anyone has a question, please raise your hand or whatever. This idea of pattern, content, context, and then solution, you have managed to see as a software engineer as a pattern itself, and you write a little program sort of that there is a new context from the context that is created from the solution itself, and therefore it is emerging and will go anywhere. And I find this fascinating, because even going back all the way to the goal, and you say it is a manufacturing example, actually it is the information in the manufacturing that is actually changed. It's how they move the information around so that they can have quicker supply chains and no storage, essentially. So it's not manufacturing as such, it is the information. And I think it is not a coincidence that you yourself are a software engineer in that sense. And also Enrique's answer to the construction, where in the design, which is about information, we are again talking about information, and the power of that information is getting stronger and stronger. And we see, you like to mention companies. I look at governments, for example, where inside the the cabinet, they each want the other person's job. Actually, they're so bad, and yet they come out union. They look unified on the outside, and there's a prime minister or a president. So the conflict itself probably is a constraint, but we can move forward with all that, and that is where maybe I want to go to with this unity of purpose, is that now we do have a very big problem, which is like the climate problem that we have. Do you see that something like that, and the unity of purpose and the taking away of constraints themselves will actually provide a solution? Because I can see what you're saying, and I see a much bigger picture than just knowledge management companies that you work with. This is the question that I was asking, if I made it clear.
I would say that there is no inherent boundary on the scope of applicability of this way of thinking. The only precondition is that the actors, the participants, agree on what is the most essential important thing, the goal, as Goldratt would say. Now, within a company, which even in the largest companies we might look at, they are still small elements of the bigger picture of the world. So you mentioned climate change, or COVID. These existential global threats. No doubt that a lot of action can be coordinated in between many players and actors, provided they share the same goal. But now that is where it becomes difficult, because the larger the group of people, especially when they are in different organizations, the more difficult it becomes to identify a common shared goal. But of course, if the world keeps on going as it is, and soon the seas will be boiling, well, I think we will eventually agree that we have to do something about it.
And it is then that we will then go all the way back to Goldratt and the fact that everything is simple in the end, and find the simple solutions that will actually make the cloud disappear, essentially, and literally. Sorry, now that I think of it.
And Enrique has a point to make.
Yes, thank you. I was writing it, but I'll better say it. I think that knowledge work is, we should go beyond industry verticals, construction, engineering, manufacturing, because we work with systems. They're all systems. When you're building a highway, when you're building a train across Italy, it's an organizational system that's doing a project to obtain benefits for community or for society. Therefore, all systems have a constraint, a hierarchy inside of it. And looking at the constraint in any system will bring benefits, because in that way you improve. You're more efficient and effective. In construction, for example, you can have the construction team waiting for the drawings to build the highway. So you have a constraint there. The whole construction is held up because the drawings are not presented. So I think that there's benefit of using Steve's ideas on the constraint in any system, also in climate, because that's also a climate issue, a system issue. And there are complex adaptive systems that are working all at the same time. So what do you think, Steve? Can we apply it to any system?
Well, constraints management is clearly applicable to any system, though that is more specifically purebred theory of constraints. TOC has been applied in all sorts of fields. In my previous reply to Franco, I was thinking more about the specificity of knowledge development. Software engineering is knowledge development, and there the further other ideas of TameFlow are quite unique and clearly applicable. I see the comment you set up there, and definitely any kind of heavy engineering work, the delivery part is dependent on the design part. The design is knowledge development, and that's where the ideas of TameFlow can certainly be applied. The coordination of different people that must interact and communicate and decide things together, develop new ideas together. Well, that is the domain, the perfect domain for TameFlow.
Indeed.
One element to be considered, however, is the time. What I mean that the time in the software project are measured in months. In the infrastructure projects are measured in years. I say that in the major projects, the stakeholders that have promoted the project will never see the end of the project itself. I just make one example. For instance, the LNG project in Nigeria, that is one of the largest liquefaction plant in the world. Basically, it took almost 20 years with one investment of $10 billion. It takes 20 years because, first of all, the first 8-10 years are negotiation with the oil companies, with the government, with the local authorities, and with the financing authorities, because for getting $10 billion, I mean, is not so easy. And therefore, there is the implementation phase that in starting from areas where there is nothing, you have to build all the infrastructure and quite large chemical plants. So the time, 20 years in the life of the project exceed the life of the project manager, because will never be a project manager that will continuing following till the end of this project. And consider also that for this kind of investment, the stakeholders are the board members that are at least in their 50s, I would say. So they are likely to be retired before the end of the project. So this makes a major difference, because also the planning, I heard before the drawings for the to be available, the planning is considerable going into the details. So this is a major fact that is affecting the typology, the type of the project. So this is one consideration for the difference. And also regarding, I make one comment, you mentioned the automotive industries. Some time ago, I attended a conference of a project manager of the Jaguar industry. So he was presenting the project office that was divided in 4 project management office: upper body, lower body, powertrain, and electrical. Upper body is whatever has to be connected with the shape of the car, upper body. The lower body is whatever it is connected with the suspension, wheels, and the rigidity of the frame, how it behaves on the road. Powertrain is the engine that you put. That may be a combustion, maybe diesel, maybe electrical, maybe steam engine. And electrical is whatever has the spark. and was explaining that, of course, initially it was just a battery and a few wires, but now is several computers that are integrated. And I would say also in this case, first of all, the time is quite, also for the design of a car, the time is much longer because you start from the market requirement, the comparison with the competitors, to design of one a new car, and how to mix the change of those 4 components. And also in this case, the software portion, it is procured through specialized companies. So what the conclusion that I am drawing is that the project management has so matured and extended that it starts with a common basis, like graduating in medicine, and eventually it assumes shapes that are completely different, like a cardiologist or a gynecologist. I mean, they went to the Imperial College London both, but after 20 years, it's so different that they cannot be exchanged anymore. And the principle in one discipline cannot be extended to the other anymore. I mean, so this is the point that I'm making.
Yeah, okay, that's a good point. I'm not sure there was a question there. Steve, I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, a general reflection is that all domains that are subject to competitive forces will develop new ways of working. In the car industry, I would mention again Tesla, because they are disrupting the industry. The product development cycles of cars were now I don't know the exact numbers, I don't remember them, but we can assume that they were several years, and Tesla has compressed that into a couple of years. And so this is the example I said before. If you're 10 times faster than the competition, you will market test 10 solutions before they come out with the first one. Even these mega projects that take years and years and go beyond the lifetime of the originator, project manager or sponsor or whomever, I think going forward, they will learn from these methods of high-performing organizations. If that proportion is like held, is it materially inconceivable that the 20-year project could be done in 2 years? It's a question I ask. I think that those projects take that amount of time, not because of technical challenges or material impossibilities, but more because of other human factors which go back to power struggles, politics, interests, and of course, when you're speaking about energy systems that move billions and that cost billions, there are lots of forces involved. That's no longer the domain of project management or of TameFlow. That is the domain of politics.
Which makes it complicated or even complex. But since we are on the automotive industry, I'm sure you know of Herbie, the original Herbie.
That was a fast one.
From the love bag. So whenever you talk about the Jeep going up the mountain, and having problems, I am thinking of little Herbie here, sort of going on. He is, of course, number 53, but there we go. I thought I'll share, because now I've started seeing this in my mind, which is from my child years. I bought this on eBay actually only a few days ago because of you. So
Thank you.
so
It's a wonderful example.
It is poor little Herbie actually, but I think the film itself conforms to the theories, and but I think that what we're looking for, and Ricky is making some very good points actually, is this other aspect that you do have with your partners, the inspired, and you call it inspired, and you insist to call it inspired leadership, as opposed to inspiring leadership. Can you sort of explain that, because you went into politics a moment ago, and that is precisely, politics itself is about some leadership that may or may not be inspired.
Yes, so this goes a bit to the core of the nature of knowledge work. I think it was Drucker that said that in knowledge work, the worker knows more than the manager or the business owner, and that becomes more and more true as this technology advances further and further. So the problem there is primarily one of delegation. How can I delegate to someone the accomplishment of whatever they need to do if I don't have the knowledge to understand even the fundamentals of that? So the growing amount of knowledge that is needed to make an organization function nowadays, and the ever-growing specialization of that knowledge creates the conditions whereby the critical decisions cannot be made by the manager, by the leader, by the business owner, but they must be delegated to someone else, someone who knows more and knows better. And therefore, I have this notion that we cannot see the role of a leader, but rather the activity of leadership. And that leadership is exercised with respect to the specialized knowledge you have, and which is applicable in respect to that context that you are at that moment. The next moment, the context changes, and there is someone else who is more knowledgeable and who needs to step forward and exercise leadership. So all these people, the hierarchy of the company, not the formal one, the one that is on the shareholder reports, but the effective hierarchy of the company, I don't say collapses, it evaporates. It's replaced by a network of knowledgeable actors that communicate and interact and synchronize and make decisions. But the one who makes the decision as of this moment in that context needs to be inspired by something bigger. And that something bigger at the end of the day is the unity of purpose. If I and you are confident that we share this unity of purpose, I can feel comfortable that you make a decision that will not hurt me, because you are acting in your own self-interest, and that will assure that you make a decision that is good for you. But because of this nature of the unity of purpose, that decision will also benefit me. In that moment, you are the leader, and the next moment, I am the leader, and the trust relationship reverses. At that point, you trust me that I will make the correct decision. So leadership and knowledge work are a very funny combination, because at the end of the day, the leader becomes the one who knows the most, and not in absolute terms, knows the most in relative terms, in relative to that situation, to that moment, to that particular problem context. And you always hear me mention this word, the context, because that is the anchor that brings back the patterns.
Yeah. And project management is goal-oriented. So if you've got a team that are actually working on the same essentially purpose, and that does work. As you are talking, I am actually fantasizing about Borland and different software engineers, each one giving a solution to something that will then solve someone else's problem, and everybody writing pieces of code that modularly all together sort of produce the final operating system or whatever it is. And the software environment does allow that. It almost nurtures that. But I'm also thinking of the sort of the race to the moon, for example, where all the scientists are together. And again, they are, at this moment, I've got a solution for this widget, you've got that solution for that thing and all that, and all together create that rocket that took us to the moon. And we like these examples. And I think that, and also the fact that the leader itself, this inspired leadership, first of all, it comes from everywhere. And secondly, the leader who actually creates the environment for the other leaders to produce, as you suggest, is almost invisible sometimes. Just the leadership is now creating the environment for all the leaders in ourselves, our specializations, to come through. And computer games, for example, I think do that at this moment, as you describe it. They create these games because each one has a different little animation, piece of animation, and then solution to an explosion and a new weapon and all that. And they all actually build it. It's the modularity of software engineering that you are also transferring to us, the less software engineering people. And I like that very much. But I have a little question. I'm not sure of time. You went to Aberdeen in 2003 to study software project management. I had a look for that course, and it is now doesn't exist. It is project management. I think the word software has been dropped, because I was trying to see, do they teach TameFlow at Aberdeen at least, since it is your alma. But I couldn't find it because I couldn't find the word software, let alone anything else.
I will double check that.
Okay, fair enough. But I think also it is a sign of the time where the software engineer becomes the project manager, in essence. This is a transition, and then it becomes hopefully responsible project management. The examples that you have been using, the Telses and the other Googles, and they're all from this new world of information and therefore knowledge management. And I think that is where workflow and TameFlow just fit in very nicely. But it is difficult. And in your own epilogue, you have made it it is never done. Can you take us away with that and sort of do it so that it is never done? What does that mean for us, this continual
well, maybe we can refer to a famous paper by Dr. Goldratt, which was called "Standing on the Shoulders of Giants," because he himself was inspired by Henry Ford and Taiichi Ohno of Toyota. And his exhortation was to never be content and to continue the investigation, the exploration, experimentation, to always find new ways of working. And in a way, what I have done to introduce the constraints management in knowledge work by combining ideas from different sources is in that spirit that Dr. Goldratt highlighted, standing on the shoulders of giants. So if TameFlow is the end of everything, I would be very, very sad. I'm waiting for someone else to take over the baton and continue the race and go even faster and further.
Indeed, as Newton himself has been surpassed, who originally mentioned the statement on the soldiers on the shoulders of others. Indeed, yes, and that is our great hope, I think, as in humanity, to go on and essentially disrupt each other and improve, hopefully.
Indeed.
I think.
Well, yes. Well, thank you all for your contributions. I think we are a little over time, but I would like to say many thanks to Steve and Daniel for joining us, and for everyone for contributing to this this conversation today. I would just like to, before we close, would like to just announce our next 3 books. The next one that we will be doing is the Design Thinking Playbook by Michael Lurick. We will start reading the book on 13th of May, and we will finish on 10th of June when Michael will join us. The next one is the Idea Book, Part 2. We don't have the cover yet, so that's why I've used the old cover for now. But the Idea Book Part 2, which is releasing end of May, we will be reading it with Frederick Harrian. He will join us on 22nd of July. And then over the summer, we will be reading Hooked by Nir Ayal. Again, a product and a project management book, and hoping to have some really good conversations. So with that, thank you all for joining us today, and we will see you next time. And thank you, Steve and Daniel, once again for taking us through the book.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, great meeting.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye,
Thank
Steve.
you.
Bye, Daniel. Bye, Book Club.
Bye, Justin. Thanks.
Thank you. It's great. It is a difficult book, and as we've said, it needs rereading, let alone the reading. So thank you. Thank you.
I think it's a